A sizzling fluorescent light rang my eardrum into curiosity. Beating the light pollution from my eyes, I begin to make out a door. As I raise my body, I see a rope of bandanas attached to my ankle. The colors taunted me, as if this bondage was strong enough to restrict me. I begin to unlace the bandana from my ankle. Then I hear a crash from outside the door. In the next few seconds, I took in the entirety of my environment. A small, fluorescent strip illuminated the small tool shed. A workbench consumed the left side. I rummaged around, but only found scraps and bolts. Turning around, I see a red Craftsman tool chest. I lift the top lid and begin to open the drawers. My heart raced when I grabbed the rubber grip, and something in my gut told me this was a bad idea. I slowly cracked open the wooden door and observed possible threats. In front of me was a large roundabout and a farm-like homestead. All the aesthetic pleasers were present. A windmill in the center of the roundabout, a double-wide trailer attached to a large garage, a half-constructed industrial shed, and the staple gas tank. My feet touched the damp grass, and I noticed my right shoe was missing. Unbothered, I stride toward the garage. My experience told me to look for the roller door, but a tall door with a small window met my vision instead. My hand trembled as I reached for the door. Gripping the brass handle, I turned it with creeping dexterity. The lock clicked, and I began to swing with most of my force. The weight groaned against the hinges. Immediately a light filled the small window. Even with the light, I could only see a group of shrouded figures looking out the window. One steps closer, and my fear takes me around the garage corner. Planting myself, dreading hearing nearing footsteps.
Oh no. Ma, what did you do? Why?
Jesse said through muffled sobs while holding his father's hand in his own. The gray suit his father had rented for his and his mother's Valentines Day date tonight was drenched with blood. Jesse just stood there, hunched over on his knees, squeezing his father's limp hand in complete shock from the image before him. A very still man lying on the floor with a long gash leading from one side of his neck to the other. And his mother, just standing there with the bloody kitchen knife still in her hand, and a look so blank it made him shudder. She had never even gotten out of her pajamas for the date.
Your father.
Jesse's mother finally spoke. It came out raspy and forced.
Your father, Jesse. Your father had another date tonight, Jesse.
She grabbed the phone from the kitchen countertop.
Just look at the phone, Jesse. Look at the phone. Look at the phone, Jesse. Look at the phone.
His mother got more and more frantic as she spoke.
Look at it, Jesse. The phone, Jesse. The fucking phone, Jesse.
She wasn't even looking at him, just frantically waving the phone and knife around while yelling directly at the wall. Her yelling suddenly calmed, and her frantic movements came to a complete stop as she turned to look at her son. He couldn't help but notice how tightly she was gripping the kitchen knife and the unsettling smile that had made its way across her face. Her eyes were so hollow.
This isn't my fault, Jesse. You believe me, don't you? Ma, this isn't... Why would you...
Her smile faded.
I believe you, Ma. This isn't my fault, Jesse.
Her last sentence was barely a whisper. She lunged forward with the knife. I always loved antique shops, so when I saw the little doll sitting in the display window of the small store, I knew I had to have it. It was an old Victorian-style porcelain doll with big blue eyes and a delicate pink dress. I brought it home with me and placed it on my shelf, admiring it every day. But something about the doll always gave me the creeps. Its eyes seemed to follow me wherever I went in the room, and sometimes I swore I heard it whispering to me at night. And I tried to ignore it, think it was just my imagination. But then things started to get weirder. One day I came home to find the doll had moved from the shelf to my bed, as if it was waiting for me. I brushed it off as a coincidence and put it back on the shelf. But the next day it had moved again, this time to the foot of my bed, I was starting to get scared. That night, I woke up to find the doll sitting on my chest, its big blue eyes staring straight into mine. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. Suddenly, the doll's porcelain face cracked, and blood started to seep from its eyes and mouth. It was alive, and it was trying to kill me. I tried to fight it off, but it was too strong. Its tiny porcelain hands were surprisingly strong, and it seemed to have a life of its own. It whispered in my ear, telling me all the horrible things it was going to do to me. I knew I had to get rid of it, but how? In a moment of desperation, I grabbed the doll and ran outside. I threw it as hard as I could, watching as it smashed into the pavement and shattered into a million pieces. I felt a sense of relief, thinking it was all over. But that was just the beginning. Every night, I could hear the doll's whisper in my ear, even though it was long gone. And every night, I'd feel its porcelain hands around my neck, choking the life out of me. I knew then that the doll was still with me, haunting me forever.